Finally, we're going to talk about some idioms. So they were by law participants in a democracy that couldn't hardly ignore them. So think through what is the correct way to say these things. So thinking logically at what the statement, because we have grammatical mistakes that we make all the time just based on how we speak. They were by law participants in a democracy that could not hardly ignore them. Look at the other options. B is would not hardly ignore them. C is wouldn't hardly ignore them. Or D is could hardly ignore them. So while we might say things like couldn't hardly, the correct way to actually use that phrase is D, could hardly ignore them. They were by law participants in a democracy that could hardly ignore them. So could not, it kind of turns into like this double negative when you say not hardly. What's also a clue is that you have 3 options that use not hardly. A, B, and C all use not hardly. So that really gives you a clue that it's probably D, because the D is the only one that's doing something grammatically different than the others. But in this part, we're addressing these common English things that we might be inclined to do based on how we speak that we should not do on the ACT because it's looking for a certain type of grammatical response. So the first is make sure to use the proper prepositions in context. So the preposition must reflect the writer's intended meaning. So on, for, with, those all reflect different ideas, different meanings. So you need to make sure that whatever option is being chosen reflects what the author intends. Also, we need to make sure that with our idiomatic expressions that we are using words and phrases together correctly. So either or, neither nor. These are common phrases within English, but we can mix them up and we need to make sure that we are using them correctly within the sentence. Finally, this is what we just talked about, the implicit double negative. So can't hardly. The last one was what? Wouldn't hardly. We need to make sure that we are not using a double negative on accident. These are so common for us to miss because of how we might address each other just like day to day within the classroom. But we need to be real careful about how we are answering these questions on the ACT.